Thank you so much for the invitation to present one of our projects. I'll try to, as best as I can, describe what's going on with the web-based survey to estimate the economic value of improved hurricane forecast, which is a project in which David Letson, Brian McNulty, who's here, and Palat Masunder from FIU, and myself from UM are working on. And just to give you a brief overview, our research question is basically, what is the public willingness to pay for improved hurricane forecast? So this tackles several dimensions. It tackles the dimension of, does the information that you get actually shape the behavior that you pursue in the face of a hurricane? And if so, then there must be a value to that information, which also means there must be a value to the research associated with that those different types of information that you might get. So the way in which we started thinking about this idea was, okay, so are there different attributes of a forecast that are more valuable than others? Is track more valuable than rain? Is rain more valuable than track? And so on and so forth. And if we can answer that question, then as economists, we can actually do some little tricks to derive a demand for forecast improvement, which means how much are you willing to pay for different levels of improvement across different dimensions. And if we can do that, then based on the best information available, we can also estimate a measure of the efficient level of progress across different dimensions of the forecast. And that's the objective of this project. So the way in which we're thinking about this from the economic side of the problem is basically running surveys, and we do have the methodologies to control for several biases that arise when we're thinking about people fixating on a value, or how my own preferences might just bias the results in the first place. So from the economic side of the problem, it's not that complicated. Where the hard part comes from is how can we actually apply these concepts, taking into account the atmospheric science, which is actually what matters when you're producing a forecast. So we had to partner up with Brian, who is an incredible resource for us in order to start thinking and understanding how these different dimensions of a forecast are being processed and how can they be implemented in a credible way, such that a survey is able to extract that willingness to pay for different dimensions of a hurricane forecast. And one of the things that we decided to do is basically focus on recently affected areas, and we have a very large, about 4,500 responses are planned to be collected from areas that were affected at some degree, including zero, by hurricanes Florence and Michael. So basically, here's the experiment, and this is, I'm gonna rush through the experiment, but it's basically, I'm gonna present to all respondents different scenarios for the improvement of a forecast. So for instance, here I have what the overall span of potential trajectories of the center of the storm are today or last year when we developed these models, and then how will they look like in 2028 following different rates of improvement. And then I say, what if this improvement will cost you a certain amount of money to your household? Do you approve, yes or no? And then I follow up that question with this called a double binding dichotomous choice, where I treat the person and say, okay, if you say yes, what if I charge you a little bit more? Are you still willing to pay for this, yes or no? And that is what basically allows us to construct a demand curve for different improvements to the forecast. So very quickly, as it is right now, the surveys are all finalized. We run some trials with several people. We're getting really good information from them. Right now, we're just waiting for the legal steps to be completed, which not surprisingly or surprisingly take a long time. And that's just all that is waiting on this project. Once that is completed and it's approved by both legal teams, UM and the survey company, will be delivered, and basically it's automated. It should take just a couple of weeks to collect all the samples, and the process is already automated, so it will be no time before you're able to see some preliminary results. One of the things that I want to say though is that despite the survey not being deployed just yet, this project has produced several, I think, insights about this idea. So for instance, collaborating with Frank, Brian and Frank basically are working on a new product, which is a side product of this project, which had nothing to do with the survey, but how we think about rain forecasts and how can we associate forecasts, associate them with different hurricane forecast processes. So this is relevant, as you may know, because it resolves several shortcuts, but more than anything, it just tells us a lot about the value of what you guys do, about the value of research and how we can actually make the best decision with limited funds when it comes to allocating resources for research. And yeah, thank you.